How can we separate Black history from American history? We cannot. I believe that we must purposely study Americans, all Americans, to understand identity, belonging, and the American way. Meet the man who believed this and promoted it with the creation of Black History Week. Meet Dr. Carter Woodson. What do you know about Black History Month? This is an abbreviated history of Black History Week and Black History Month. Black historian Carter G. Woodson said, "Those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history." Dr. Woodson, known as the father of Black history, worked with the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History to launch Negro History Week in 1926. Woodson felt that February was the best month to celebrate Negro history because February coincided with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln on the 12th and Frederick Douglass on the 14th. On February 7th, 1926, it was a proud American day with the launch of Negro History Week. In 1976, it became Black History Month. The stated purpose of this event was to bring national attention to the contributions of Black people throughout American history. Early in the event's history, Black newspapers around the country supported the event from the initial phase, which was to emphasize and encourage the teaching of Black American history in the nation's public schools. The first Negro History Week was met with a lukewarm response, gaining the cooperation of the Departments of Education in only 3 states, North Carolina, Delaware, and West Virginia, but also included in the city school administrations for Baltimore, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. In 1929, the Journal of Negro History noted that, with only 2 exceptions, officials with the state departments of education of every state with considerable Negro populations had made the event known to the state's teachers and distributed official literature associated with Black History Week. Churches, civic organizations, fraternal orders, and the Black press played significant roles in the distribution of literature. They emphasized the importance of learning Black history, their history. Over the next decades, Negro History Week grew in popularity, with mayors across the United States endorsing it as a holiday. In February 1969, Black educators and Black United students at Kent State University first proposed Black History Month and was launched there the following year. 6 years later, Black History Month was being celebrated across the country in educational institutions, centers for Black culture, and community centers. In 1976, President Gerald Ford extended the week-long recognition to a full month during the celebration of the United States bicentennial. He urged Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. In 1986, the first year that Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday in January was recognized as a national holiday, the United States Congress designated the month of February as National Black History Month. President Ronald Reagan issued a proclamation noting that the foremost purpose of Black History Month is to make all Americans aware of this struggle for freedom and equal opportunity. Today, every state recognizes Black History Month in various forms or commemorations at schools, institutions, organizations, and individual celebrations across America. However, it is not a federal holiday. Therefore, government agencies have begun pulling ethnic, cultural, or gender identity celebrations because they are not federal. In the media, we have heard the question about President Trump canceling Black History Month. On January 31st, he signed a Black History Month proclamation and stated, quote, "This National Black History Month, as America prepares to enter a historic golden age, I want to extend my tremendous gratitude to Black Americans for all they have done to bring us to this moment and for the many future contributions they will make as we advance into a future of limitless possibility under my administration." End quote. Meet Carter Goodwin Woodson. He was born in Buckingham County, Virginia in 1875, the son of former slaves, seventh of nine children. He worked on his parents' 10-acre tobacco farm most of the day, with little time to attend school. Two of his uncles were teachers, and Carter attended their school when he could. He learned to read using the Bible and his father's newspapers in the evening. By the age of 17, he was able, through self instruction, to master the fundamentals of common school subjects. The family moved to West Virginia when they learned that Huntington was building a high school for blacks. Carter took a job in a coal mine to save money, and a few months out of each year, he attended school. In 1895, at the age of 20, Woodson entered Douglas High School and received his diploma in less than 2 years. He attended Berea College in Kentucky part-time and earned a Bachelor of Literature degree in 1903. He went to the Philippines and taught school. When he returned home, he enrolled at the University of Chicago and received both his bachelor's and master's degrees in the spring of 1908. That fall, he became a doctoral student in history at Harvard University. Woodson completed his PhD in history in 1912. In 1909, Woodson accepted a teaching position at Armstrong Manual Training School in Washington, D.C., where he taught English, French, Spanish, and history. The school had opened in 1902 in Washington and one of only two high schools in the city for black students. Armstrong featured carpentry, machine, foundry, blacksmith, and lathe workshops and had laboratories for chemistry, physics, and photographic work. Booker T. Washington spoke at the opening ceremony. This postcard, mailed in 1910, was part of a series of Negro business enterprises and places of interest in Washington, D.C. Woodson believed that education and increasing social and professional contacts among blacks and whites could reduce racism and he promoted the organized study of Black history partly for that purpose. He served as academic dean of the West Virginia Collegiate Institute, now West Virginia State University, from 1920 to 1922. Dr. Woodson taught at Howard University and served as the dean of the School of Liberal Arts and was head of the graduate faculty from 1919 to 1920. With William D. Hartgrove, George Cleveland Hall, Alexander L. Jackson, and James E. Stamps, Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in 1915 while in Chicago. He said that African American contributions were overlooked, ignored, and even suppressed by the writers of history textbooks and the teachers who used them. Race prejudice, he concluded, is merely the result of tradition, the inevitable outcome of thorough instruction to the effect that the Negro has never contributed anything to the progress of mankind. Woodson wrote several books and did extensive historical research. Some of his best known works are African Heroes and Heroines, The Miseducation of the Negro, The History of the Negro Church, The Story of the Negro Retold, A Century of Negro Migration, The Mind of the Negro, The Education of the Negro Prior to 1861, and The Negro in Our History. He also collected thousands of artifacts and publications. If you want to understand the history of Black Americans, begin here, not just with slavery. Interestingly, in 1924, Woodson studied and published the first survey of free Black slave owners in the United States in 1830. He sought historical truths. In 1984, Woodson was honored with the issue of a United States Black Heritage Series stamp. President Ronald Reagan unveiled the stamp. Woodson died suddenly from a heart attack in his office within his home in Washington, D.C. in 1950. He was 74 years old. Woodson has received numerous prestigious honors and tributes, including the Father of Black History statue at Memorial Park in Washington, D.C. His Washington, D.C. home has been restored and is a National Historic Site. Schools have honored his name in California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Minnesota, New York, North Carolina, Texas, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and West Virginia. Charles Austin drew this biographical cartoon of Dr. Woodson for the National Archives and Records Administration in 1943. If the white man wants to hold on to it, let him do so. But the Negro, so far as he is able, should develop and carry out a program of his own. In our so-called democracy, we are accustomed to give the majority what they want rather than educate them to understand what is best for them. Negro banks, as a rule, have failed because the people, taught that their own pioneers in business cannot function in this sphere, withdrew their deposits. The mere imparting of information is not education. Above all things, the effort must result in making a man think and do for himself.